Hi and welcome to the video. I'm here at British Airways' lounge at Heathrow Terminal 5B Satellite Terminal, where I'm waiting for my flight later this afternoon across to Los Angeles on board one of their Airbus A380 aircraft. I'm really looking forward to this because it's going to be my first time flying long haul on the A380 and my first time in the upper deck. So thanks so much for watching. I really hope you enjoy the video. Let's go! I'd just arrived off a connecting flight from Glasgow, and since I knew that my A380 flight would be leaving from the sea gates today, I decided just to head over to the Galleries Lounge at Terminal 5B rather than heading to the Galleries First Lounge in the main terminal. To access Satellite B and C terminals, you need to go down to the transit train, although it's worth noting that you can also use the access corridors a couple of floors below if you fancy stretching your legs before a long flight. It's about 400 metres from Terminal 5 to the B gates and roughly the same again to the C gates. Once you arrive at the Satellite B terminal, you can either take the escalator or lift up to the gate area where you'll find a number of shops. The BA Galleries Lounge is located on the mezzanine level above this and has its own lift and escalator to access. The lounge has a number of soft seating areas along with some benches that are more suited for laptop users to work on. To the left you'll find the wine gallery area as well as the toilet facilities for the lounge. There are coffee machines located at both sides of the lounge, and the large main self-serve bar area is located in the centre of the lounge with a fairly good range of spirits, beers, wines and soft drinks on offer. To the right hand side of the lounge you'll find a self-serve buffet area and dining area as well as showers at the far end. Since the Elemis Travel Spa was permanently closed during the pandemic, the area previously used for this facility is still closed off and out of use. There is also a customer service counter at this end of the lounge should you be in need of any assistance. I found the buffet offering a bit lacking in this visit. I'm not sure if it was reflective of the same choice and offer in the main Galleries Lounge across in Terminal 5, but it wasn't particularly inspiring in terms of available choice. Around the corner from the main buffet there is also a separate area with soup and rolls available, along with a selection of sandwiches and crisps. The lounge is quite a bit busier than I've seen it in previous visits, but it's still a very pleasant place to spend a couple of hours before your flight, and it offers some fantastic views out over the apron. I was also fortunate enough to meet a fellow Scottish traveller, Ian, who was on his way to JFK as part of a tier point run. As boarding time for my flight grew near, I bid farewell to Ian and made my way over to the sea gates, and when I arrived at gate C63 I found that boarding had already begun. Well, I say boarding had begun, but in reality we were scanned through only to be held for several minutes at the bottom of the escalators before finally being let through to the jet bridge area. A total of 3 air bridges were being used for today's flight, with the first being dedicated solely to the 4 rows of first class on the main deck, and the second providing access for Club World and economy passengers on the rest of the main deck. The third and final jet bridge provided access to the upper deck, and this was the one that I was going to be using today. Our aircraft today was this 8-year-old Airbus A380, one of 12 that British Airways currently have in service in their fleet. After getting to the end of the jet bridge, I made my way to my seat in Club World, or at least so I thought. It was only as I was starting to put my belongings away that I realised I'd made the cardinal sin of sitting in the wrong seat. Club World on the upper deck has 2 cabins and I was in the right seat in the wrong cabin. Thankfully I realised my error before the right floater turned up and quickly made my way through my proper seat in the forward Club World cabin. This would be my first time flying in the upper deck of the A380. And other than a short flight from Madrid in November 2021, I hadn't flown long haul in the older style club seat for over 14 years, so I was really interested to see how it compared to the newer club suite that I've flown in recent years. The seat felt very similar to the old upper deck seats on the sadly now retired 747 aircraft, and you feel like you're very high up off the ground in the upper deck. Window seats benefit greatly from deep storage bins to the side, providing much needed storage for these seats which they otherwise lack. In fact, these were large enough that I was able to fit my entire rucksack inside a single one of them, and had a total of 3 available to me for my use. Menus were handed out by the cabin crew, and meal orders were taken prior to our pushback from the stand. Once boarding had completed, I had a quick look at the in-flight entertainment screen, which is a 15.4-inch touchscreen that pops out from the side of the seat. Unsurprisingly, given that this is BA's previous generation of seat, the in-flight entertainment feels a little bit dated, and I found the screen to be quite unresponsive at times. It also had a tendency to wobble back and forth quite easily, and I found myself having to hold it in place with one hand while pressing with the other most of the time. On the plus side, you are able to tilt the screen, which is great if you're wanting to watch a movie while laying down with the seat in flatbed mode. We pushed back from stand around 40 minutes behind schedule, but it would be a further 20 minutes of slow taxiing before we finally made it to runway 27 left. Our route today would take us on a northwesterly track, up over Scotland, passing over Iceland and Greenland with some truly spectacular views along the way, before turning south over Canada and the US before finally arriving in at Los Angeles. Due to our route, the sunset would be chasing us for most of our flight, and we would only actually see it set in the last hour before arrival. If you're enjoying the video, don't forget to hit the like button, leave me a comment and subscribe for new videos as they come out. Once we'd completed our initial climb out of Heathrow, I decided to take a better look around the seat. Along the side are the controls for the retractable partition as well as the seat controls themselves. These are fairly intuitive and offer a good range of adjustment and preset positions. To the back of the seat you'll find a headphone jack and the remote control for the in-flight entertainment, along with a USB-A socket and some legacy audio-visual inputs, although I don't think anybody uses those anymore. Headphones were provided in the storage drawer at the base of the seat, but these are not noise cancelling, and as I was using my own headphones, I didn't try these out during the flight. It was at this time that the crew came round handing out hot towels. These are always very welcome on a long flight, and it's nice to see these returning as part of the regular service. And although BA's towels sometimes come under criticism for being a touch on the thin side, I thought they were fine and very much appreciated it. To the rear of the seat is an adjustable reading light, which can be more easily accessed when the seat is in flat bed mode. There's a large fold-down footstool at the bottom of the seat area, which forms part of the bed when it's fully flat, providing a 6-foot long area to stretch out on. It also makes lounging in the recline mode really comfortable. As we passed over my home airport of Glasgow at 36,000 feet, cabin service began in earnest, with the drink orders that had been taken on the ground being brought round to the passengers. The tray table can be moved forwards and backwards, but you'll not be able to get out of your seat when it's in use, unless you're in one of the aisle seats. It's not the most stable of tables, but despite there being quite a bit of bounce in it, I didn't really find it that big of a problem when I was eating. Before meal service began, I decided to pay a quick visit to the infamously large toilets at the front of the cabin. These truly are massive for an airline toilet and utilise the dead space at the front of the upper deck. Most airlines use this space in the same way, although Emirates make the space even larger and have installed shower cabinets on board. Not long after I had returned to my seat, the main meal service began, with a cloth being laid across the table and each of the courses being served separately. I had opted to start with the carrot and ginger soup with croutons, which was really tasty. I quite often opt for soups when flying as they're hard to get wrong and are quite often packed with flavour, as was the case with this one. This was then followed by the main course, which in my case was the roasted British chicken supreme with cold cannon mash, grilled vegetables and juice. Final course was dessert, which I'm sorry to say was extremely disappointing. I had opted for the banana chocolate mousse, and this was presented in a tiny and uninspiring dish. I'm not sure if the fresh fruit or apricot soufflé options were more impressive, but this was a real letdown and BA can certainly do better. With the meal service over, I decided to watch some of the offerings on the in-flight entertainment. I prefer to use my own Anker SoundCore noise cancelling headphones paired with the AirFly Bluetooth adapter, which lets me use them with any wired headphone socket. However, the in-flight entertainment could not compete with the views out of the window as the flight progressed. As we passed first over Iceland and then Greenland, we were treated to some truly breathtaking scenes below. Just as I thought that Iceland was going to be the high point of the trip, Greenland stepped up to the mark and absolutely blew it away. This was hands down the most spectacular scenery that I've seen in over 40 years of flying, and I feel truly fortunate to have been able to experience it. This is exactly why I love flying. It presents the opportunity to see sights that you would never see from the ground, and it's something that I still find special even after hundreds of flights. After the excitement of all that stunning scenery, I decided to try and get a few hours sleep, but unfortunately my seat had other ideas. I'd had a few minor issues with the seat controls since the start of the flight, but it was when I tried to put the seat into flat bed mode and finally get some sleep that it gave up the ghost, and I had to call on the cabin crew to try and fix it. I also discovered at this point that my call bell was not working, despite it lighting up in the panel above my head, as it was only when I went to the galley to ask for some help that the crew apologised that they hadn't heard any notification. Unfortunately, this meant a manual repositioning of the seat and that the controls were not able to be used for the second half of the flight. This also meant that I was stuck in an upright position, and if I wanted the seat adjusted again, I'd have to get the crew to move it manually. I found sleep elusive because I've been stuck in an upright position. I ended up amusing myself by watching one of Matt's Planet's videos at 38,000 feet as we were passing over northern Canada. An activity that's becoming somewhat of a tradition for me in my long haul flights if you've seen any of my other videos. If you've not already seen him, then I'd recommend checking out his channel, and I'll add a link in the description below. After passing a few more hours watching IFE and trying to nap on and off, it was around 90 minutes before we were due to land in Los Angeles that our second light meal service began. Again, this came with a choice of starter and main course, and I opted for the cold smoked chicken dish. This was quite tasty and nicely presented for a starter. However, the main course was a real letdown. I had opted for the chicken and vegetable pie, and while it initially looked quite promising when it arrived in a nice large dish, the reality was that there was hardly any filling in the pie, and it was mostly pastry and sauce, with only a few small pieces of chicken to be found. With about 20 minutes of flying left to go, the seatbelt signs came on and we began our final descent towards Los Angeles. As the cabin lights were dimmed, I reflected on my long haul experience with BA in today's flight. The pros: it's a great aircraft, so quiet and comfortable to fly in, and the meal service was reasonably good with a decent choice of courses for both meals, my disappointing chicken pie notwithstanding. On the downside, the seat is dated when held in comparison to the club suites that have replaced it, and the ongoing issues with seats on the A380 need to be sorted out. It's no good for passengers who are paying a premium for lie flat seats on a long haul flight to have their seat broken for the majority of the flight. I also hate to say it, but the crew in this flight were not very proactive, and while I appreciate their lack of visibility in the cabin out with their meal services may have been to minimise disturbing sleeping passengers, they were notable in their absence, and it's not in keeping with the crews I've had on other BA flights to the US in recent years. Overall though, I still really enjoyed my flight, despite the broken seat, and the views of Iceland and Greenland mid-flight are something that will stay with me forever. As we touched down on runway 24 right, our arrival was captured by local YouTube channel LA Flights, and I've included a clip from their channel of our flight landing. I wasn't aware at the time, but this flight was to be the final A380 service to Los Angeles for at least the next 7 months until the new schedule starts at the end of October. After landing, we had a long taxi over to the Tom Bradley terminal and pulled on stand at gate 148 around 30 minutes behind schedule, having managed to make up some of our initial delay on the way over. Again, a dedicated air bridge was attached to the upper deck and the crew held back economy passengers while those of us in Club World disembarked. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed the video, and if you have, please remember to hit the like button, leave me a comment and subscribe to the channel for new videos as they're released.